resolute. At the moment of creation, nothing came into being apart from the Word. The same Word that would become flesh in Jesus. Which means the world and humanity are from the very beginning filled with God. This is the Christ mystery. That Christ is the indwelling divine presence in everyone and everything since the beginning of time. By the year 451, the Council of Chalcedon gave language to the Christ mystery that the church had long experienced. They said Christ is one person in two natures, fully human and fully divine, united without confusion or separation. And this is our Chalcedonian Christology. And that's your church history lesson for today. With this in mind, John's Gospel sees the birth of Jesus not as an isolated miracle, but as the continuation of the first moment of creation. The incarnation is not God interrupting the world, but fulfilling it, revealing what was true from the very beginning. Creation has always been pregnant with God. The Word made flesh simply unveils the divine presence that has always been woven into the world's very being. From this Chalcedonian worldview, God is never against the world or in competition with it. Matter itself is already infused with the divine. Sacred versus profane is a false dichotomy. Matter itself already infused. Father Richard Rohr says, religion's essential function is to radically connect us with everything. Religio, religament, or reconnect. A cosmic notion of the Christ competes with no one, excludes no one, but includes everyone and everything. He says, in this understanding of the Christian message, the Creator's love and presence are grounded in the created world. Former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, describes this as a non-dual non-identity, which unites God and creation. You cannot point to one thing and say, there is God. Because there is nothing that is not held within God's life. Chalcedonian Christology then becomes the foundation for faith that sees God everywhere, not nowhere. And this shapes how we think about human identity. We often describe ourselves by our roles or the groups we belong to, but our theology invites something deeper. Our identity is wrapped in Christ because our very being arises from the one through whom all things came to be. To see ourselves Christologically is to imagine our own lives woven into that moment from the very beginning. Our existence, a continuation of God's ongoing birth in the world. Williams writes, you have an identity, not because you invented one, but because you have a witness of who you are. In the eyes of the presence that never goes away, all that you have been and are is still present and real, held together in a unifying gaze. Our true identity is found in the loving gaze of God. Love looking upon love. This is incarnational and Christological. The life was the light of all people. In God's face shining upon us, we know who we truly are. We know who our neighbor truly is. This theological grounding also shapes how we understand sin and hell. Episcopalians do not imagine hell as divine punishment, but as a state created by our own free will. What happens when we choose separation rather than relationship with God, and therefore separation rather than relationship with one another. And still, God remains present, because nothing in creation can be outside of God. This is why Episcopalians do not evangelize as though souls must be rescued from God's absence. We trust that all people already live within the love and mercy of the one who created them. John's Gospel also reframes original sin. If creation is saturated with God, then creation is fundamentally good. Pelagius argued this. Augustine insisted that the fall left humanity fundamentally damaged. And we know whose view from that debate dominated history, and how deeply the church's insistence on human badness wounded generations for millennia. Our Anglican inheritance, however, draws from the goodness of creation, from Chalcedonian Christology, from the freedom that allows us to participate in love being made real. For us, original sin is not an inherent depravity, but our human tendency towards self-centeredness, shaped by generations of systems that reinforce that. Sin is both personal and social, based on living in ways that deny the belovedness of others. And always, we retain the free will to choose otherwise, to seek and serve Christ in all people, rather than collapse into self-centeredness, greed, and dehumanization. This is where our Christmas hope circles back to last Sunday's prayer. The God whose face shines upon us is the same God whose light has been woven into creation from before the beginning. To know ourselves in God's shining gaze is to remember who we truly are. Beloved, made of God's own life, and capable always of choosing love. The book of Colossians echoes John beautifully. Christ is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him were created all things in heaven and on earth, the visible and invisible. All things were created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. As we move into the new year, live incarnationally and live Christologically. Let Christ's light, the life of all people, guide your seeing and your choosing. If nothing exists outside of God's life, then every person you meet carries the radiance of Christ. So let this shape how you meet your neighbor, the stranger, the enemy, not in fear or division, but in the truth of God's indwelling love. For the one through whom all things came into being is the same light shining in every human face. To see and serve Christ in all is to simply recognize what John has told